Hey, what's up, guys? It's Hayden.
Hey, and I'm Emma. Thank you for joining us. If you are new to our channel, we do film and TV reviews and reactions. We are currently discussing every single episode in season 2 of The Mandalorian. Now, episode 6 or chapter 14 aired this week with a very ominous title.
Yeah, so how this episode started was we kind of got like this little intro scene and then the title pops up and automatically we're going, oh no, what's going to happen?
Called The Tragedy. So, I mean, you can make your assumptions straight away with a title like that. And as usual, we are discussing spoilers, so that is your warning. Oh, because some tragedies did happen in this episode.
Oh yes, a couple of big ones.
So, before we jump into it, we hope you like what we do and that you'll stick around, hit that subscribe button, and we're going to jump right in and talk about this episode now.
Yeah, so this, as I said, this episode begins with this little intro scene with Grogu and Din Djarin flying to Tython, to this Jedi altar, where he's going to put Grogu on the stone and do like a galaxy-wide SMS to the Jedis in the universe. And they're in the ship, and there's this great little moment where Din Djarin's like, Grogu. And Grogu's like, huh? Grogu, huh? And he's just having fun. He's like laughing to himself. He's just so kind of attached to Grogu. You can just see it. You can just kind of hear it in his voice.
It was such a relatable, just such a small little scene, but it was so relatable.
Yeah, it's like when you learn a new trick with like your cat or your dog.
Yeah.
And you're just like, hey, and you just keep on doing it.
And they respond, and it just makes your heart flutter. And I think one of the main things I loved just from this opening scene was just hearing Din Djarin's little chuckle.
Yeah.
Just like you don't hear it too often, and you can just, without seeing his facial expressions, you can hear in that very small chuckle how much he adores this kid. And it was such a beautiful moment.
And isn't that a great moment too, just to see how far Din Djarin's come as a character?
Yes.
Like, he was very hardened when we first met him at the beginning of season 1, to now where he's laughing and he's enjoying the company of his little friend Grogu.
Yeah.
I think it's just really great to see, really heartwarming. Again, just builds on that relationship that they both have.
Yeah.
But yeah, then the title comes up called The Tragedy, and we're like, oh, come on. I was just feeling good.
I think we both looked at each other going, oh no, is this the episode where we lose the child?
What's going to happen? But then they land on Tython and they go up to this structure, like this natural structure made of stone. And Din Djarin's like, does this look Jedi to you? Because he doesn't know any better. He's kind of oblivious to all this stuff. But he puts Grogu on this stone and nothing's really happening. He's looking for a lever or a switch or something. And then we hear a ship flying overhead. And then we see the ship come in from orbit. And it's Slave 1. Slave mother effing 1. Boba Fett's ship. I lost my shit. Like,
and the Star Wars geeks rejoice.
Yes. I was just like, it's Slave 1. It's Boba. I lost my shit. I fanboyed.
Calm yourself.
I lost my shit. I was just such a great fanboy moment. I love that. Exciting
moment, because we have been waiting for Boba Fett to join us again this season. So yes, it all started to happen.
Yeah, but Din Djarin, he doesn't know who this is. He hasn't met Boba Fett before, so he's just like, hey kid, we gotta go, someone's here. And then next minute, Grogu sends out this force beam into the sky, and he's like meditating. He's got like his little fingers like this, and he's like meditating.
That was so cute.
And Din Djarin tries to break through it, and he can't. Like, it pushes him back. So he's then, okay, wait here, I'll buy some time. He goes down. And then he gets shot at. And that's when we see this familiar figure, this hooded figure. And yes, it's Boba Fett. Boba Fett is there in his robes, kind of how we saw him at the end of episode 1. They have a bit of a confrontation, right? Where, Boba's like, hey, I want my armor back. Din Djarin's like, well, are you Mandalorian? And he's like, no, it was my father's armor. It was passed down. And he's like, well, what's stopping me from like shooting you right now? And Boba's like, well, I've got a sharpshooter pointing at the kid. And it's Fennec. from, I think it was episode 5 of season 1, the assassin, the sharpshooter.
Somewhere around then.
Yeah. And yeah, Boba had rescued her at the end of that episode. So those that were rumoring that, that thought that that might have been Boba that we saw at the end of that episode, you were correct. It was Boba. He saved her, gave her some cybernetic parts, and now she's in his debt. So they are together. She's got her sights set on the child. And that's when, you know, Din Djarin's like, okay, let's talk about this. And Boba, I mean, surprisingly, was like, hey, I don't want violence, you know, I just want my armor, let's just have a chat. So Mando puts down his jetpack, you know, kind of, you know, they all put down their weapons and Boba's like, hey, I need you to put down your jetpack as well. I assume because Boba knows that a jetpack can be a dangerous weapon as well. Obviously, he's got his, like, rocket launcher in his jetpack. So I think he's maybe just being a bit cautious. And also so Din Djarin doesn't kind of fly off. You know, he wants to know he's going to stick around. He wants his armor back. So Mando puts his jetpack down, which is a bit of foreshadowing into what's going to come later in the episode.
I was going to say, it was a little bit of a foreshadowing with that.
Yeah. And before they can really, I guess, get down to the finer details of the negotiation, that's when we see another ship come in. And it lands and it opens up and it's the stormtrooper. So the Empire is finally caught up to Din Djarin and the child. And Din Djarin's first thought is, the child, I gotta get to the child. So he forgets the jetpack. He doesn't even think of the jetpack. He's just like, bang, straight to the child. And then Boba and Fennec, they make a beeline straight to, you know, cut off these Imperials and kind of stop them in their tracks. And then we get this really great action sequence, which is pretty much the entire episode, is just like this great action sequence between Boba Fett and Mando and the stormtroopers. Now, before I go any further, I think it's important to note that this episode was directed by Robert Rodriguez.
Yes, who is one of our all-time favourite directors, might we add.
I love Rodriguez. I think credit him for, I guess, the filmmaker that I am. Like, I take a lot of inspiration from him. His book, Rebel Without a Crew, is my filmmaking Bible. I have read that through about 5 times. I love that book. I've studied all of his work, the behind the scenes of his work, kind of how he thinks, how he operates. So it was really great to finally see his episode.
Yeah.
And he handles the direction perfectly. He's known how to handle action ever since El Mariachi in 92. Which he made for like $7,000, like, and he was doing like bus stunts and all that kind of stuff. He knows how to handle action. He knows how to shoot action. He does that very well. So this action scene was shot perfectly, very well. A lot of, you know, moving cameras and a lot of like intensity and energy about it, which is what he does. He likes to bring energy to action scenes. He never likes to just lock the camera off on a tripod. You know, he likes to, you know, get in there, get handheld. Throw it on a gimbal, you know, throw it on a dolly track, just get it moving around, you know. So he shot that really great. But the actual look, like the visuals, the grade of this planet and I guess the episode as a whole kind of threw us off initially.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure whether that's because the last episode that we had was very stylized, heavily stylized. And this felt very normal, natural, raw, like realistic. Almost like they just threw on a bit of contrast in post, and that was it. They didn't really do anything too stylistic with it, which initially threw us off. We're like, this doesn't quite look right. There's something a little bit off. Now, watching it again today, it wasn't as apparent, and it didn't jump out at me as much, and I kind of overlooked that, and it wasn't a bigger deal. Like, it looked great. Like, it was shot well. But I think the color grade itself was very, as you said, kind of raw, realistic. They didn't try and do too much with it, which I think you'll either love or you hate that about it.
Yeah. I think for me, while I loved everything that happened in the episode, like and the story was back onto that main storyline, a lot happened, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it. This has to be my least favorite episode in terms of how it looked overall, in terms of the color grade And it was something that I noticed almost straight away when we got to Tython. And I didn't know if maybe it was the location that I can't say.
I think the location might have had something to do with it, because from my understanding, a lot of the scenes and the locations that we are getting in The Mandalorian are actually sets. Like, they're actually like studios and
they look
sets
very
and stuff.
otherworldly. This looked like a very...
This looked like it was shot on location.
It looked like it was shot on our planet, on planet Earth. And I think that might have also had something to do with it. I wasn't a huge fan of the location that they picked. But also, the colour grade, it was just very normal and not very Mandalorian from what we've seen so far. Yeah. So in that sense, I didn't really love it, but I still enjoyed everything that happened in it. I mean, despite the tragedies.
I think it's important to separate that from, I guess, the cinematography and how it was shot, because they are kind of two different things. It was shot very, very well. Robert Rodriguez knows what he's doing. Like, he comes from Hollywood, you know, those feature films, even though he's a bit more of an independent filmmaker. He comes from, you know, big budget, well, decently budget films. He's, you know, recently done Alita Battle Angel. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to work behind the camera. I think it, probably came down to the location a little bit, and probably more so the color grade that was chosen. Yeah. But as I said, I watched it today and I didn't have as big an issue with it. I think it was just a bit of a jump from that really heavily stylized episode that we got last week. But regardless, very, very cool action scene. We get to see Boba Fett finally redeemed. Finally redeemed. He starts off with, I think it's a gaff stick or something. It's the stick that the sand people use. So obviously on Tatooine, he might have befriended or killed some sand people and got his hands on one of those. But man, does he know how to wield that. Like, he is cracking stormtrooper skulls left, right, and center. You can just see their helmets just cracking and splitting open, and that's really brutal. Like, he goes to town on these stormtroopers. Mando, kind of tries again and again to get through to the child, and he can't. So he's just kind of, wait there, I'll be back. He goes down to help Fennec and Boba Fett. Pretty much as soon as he leaves, though, the force power kind of stops. Like, this big beam of light kind of stops and fades, and he goes and has a little bit of a nap. So we're just like, oh, come on, if you just waited there like 10 more seconds. Which, again, this is just putting us on edge. Like, it just seems like nothing's kind of lining up, right? And we're kind of stuck here, Din Djarin can't get through to him. And then as soon as he steps off, that's when the force powers go down. Yeah. So we feel like just things aren't lining up and something, is going to go wrong at any minute. Yeah. So Din Djarin goes and helps Fennec. She's kind of getting pinned down. She's doing all right to handle herself, though. Like, she's taking out these stormtroopers left and right. Again, she's a sharpshooter. She's able to kind of dislodge this boulder, and that rolls down the hill and takes out like a whole bunch of stormtroopers, which is great. She has this great little moment too, where she's kind of running towards this like little cliff face, and she jumps off of it, turns around and shoots, and then is able to kind of land kind of on the ground and then kind of roll backwards. Yeah. She kind of braces her impact a little bit. Reminding me a lot of Desperado, with the El Mariachi character doing the same thing, jumping from a building, turning around, shooting, and then landing on the other side and kind of bracing his fall and rolling out of it.
I thought it was a very cool move.
I think from that moment I was kind of like, ooh, that's a little bit Robert Rodriguez. Yeah. But she's kind of pinned down. Din Djarin comes and helps her out. He's obviously got the Beskar steel, so he kind of stands in front of her. He's got like the that little missile launcher in his arm, which takes out a few. He's blasting a few. But they're starting to get a little bit outnumbered. And then Boba, he's kind of off by himself, but he notices the Razor Crest, and he knows the Razor Crest is open. And he kind of sees his armor from a distance, and we're like, oh, okay, what's going to happen here? And next minute, he comes flying in, and there's this great little reveal, right? It's like he lands behind the stormtrooper, and then it's kind of like this nice little reveal, and we finally get to see Boba in his armor again. And it's just this great fanboy moment. You're just like, yes, come on! And he, again, just goes to absolute town on these stormtroopers. He's put down the gaff stick, but he's got his blaster. He's, taking them down. He's got his, knee rockets. He's just annihilating these stormtroopers. Finally, again, just redeeming himself as a character. Like, this is the Boba Fett we wanted to see.
And I
badass.
I have to say, he got a bit of his swagger back.
Oh, yes.
As soon as that armor went on, you can just see in his posture and his stance, just the attitude that he has now.
It's kind of like this puffed out chest is like...
You had that hero shot there.
Yeah, like, come at me, bro. And then the Stormtroopers, they got to retreat. Like, there's no match for Boba and Din Djarin and Fennec. Like, these elite warriors. So they end up fleeing on the two ships. And Boba, he gets his, like, tracker out, his, targeting system, and locks onto one of the ships, kind of leans over and then launches his backpack rocket. And it hits one of the ships which then crashes into the other one, and he takes them both out at once. And then Din Djarin's like, hey, nice shot. And he's like, I was aiming for the other one.
That was so good.
So, which makes me think, like, is his backpack just, like, faulty?
Potentially.
Because if it gets whacked, it, like, will malfunction, and his rocket and his targeting system are off. Like, does he get it serviced by the Empire or something?
He must do.
He must do. But they finally defeat these stormtroopers. But then we see Moff Gideon in this cruiser that's kind of looming overhead. And he sends out a blast and destroys the Razor Crest. The Razor Crest is gone. It's blown to smithereens.
After he just
got
it fixed for the millionth time. But man, now that alone was a tragedy.
That alone was a tragedy. Like, we felt that. Like, this is like his Slave One almost. Like, this is like his Millennium Falcon. Like, we've grown to love this ship along with, Din Djarin and the child. Like, it's part of that crew. So I was really sad to see that go. But then I think Mando knows that, they're not out of the woods yet. So he's like, the child. They make a beeline. Him and Fennec make a beeline for the child. Boba goes and grabs his ship because he knows, like, well, if they can take out a ship from orbit, then I better go and get Slave One and get it airborne. So then Moff Gideon is like, have the Dark Troopers been deployed? And one of his officers like, momentarily. So we were correct. Those are Dark Troopers. They are Dark Troopers. And then we see the Dark Troopers get deployed. And they're like these mechanical kind of super troopers, these Iron Men looking dudes.
Yeah.
And they're kind of flying in with their rocket powered boosters coming out of their feet.
They look pretty intimidating.
And Din Djarin, like, he's lost his backpack, so they're kind of making it by foot. Then these Dark Troopers land and they're making a beeline straight for the child, and the child wakes up and is like, huh? And then they scoop him up and they take off just as Din Djarin and Fennec kind of just come over the ridge. And he kind of looks on his scopes and he can see that they've got the child. And we're like, oh no.
And as an audience, you're watching all of this unfold and just feeling so helpless.
I know.
Just like, exactly what's going to happen. And you're just like, he can't get there. He can't get there in time.
Like, Boba's in Slave One and they're like, hey, can you catch up to these guys? Can you stop them? And he's like, got it. So he kind of flies after them and he's like, I got them in my sights. But then Din Djarin's like, don't harm the child. So Fennec has to go, hey, hold off. And he's like, okay, I'll just follow them and see where they're going. So he kind of follows them through the clouds until, like, the cruiser finally reveals itself. And then he's like, the Empire's back. And Fennec's like, what do you mean the Empire's back? And he's like, they're back. I'm staring right at them. This isn't a spy stream. There's a cruiser right there. I'm looking at it. So then he has to retreat. And he goes back to Fennec and Din Djarin. But it looks like the Empire's been kind of going undercover. It doesn't seem like they've kind of been broadcasting it to the world just yet. They seem like they're kind of building up in the undergrounds of this universe. Because, Boba, he didn't realize that they were back. Fennec didn't realize they were back. So I think that just goes to, I guess, show kind of where the Empire's at in this kind of post Return of the Jedi universe.
Yeah.
They're kind of, they're there and they're kind of starting to build their forces again. But they're not they're definitely doing things subtly, So, Mando, he's like searching through the wreckage of the Razor Crest, and he finds the ball, the little silver ball that...
I called it seconds before. I'm like, he's going to find the ball and he's going to pocket it.
And you can just see, just in the way he looks at it, just how kind of heartbroken he is.
Yeah.
And he pockets it because it's like a keepsake. He knows, he's like, I'm going to find this child. I'm going to reunite with him. I'm going to keep this ball for later. It's like a little kind of keepsake for him at this point.
And you can just kind of feel that failure in him. You can feel that he feels like he's failed this child and he's going to do whatever he can to get him back.
Yeah, and he also finds the Beskar steel spear, which we think might come in handy coming up against Moff Gideon and the Darksaber. Now that we know that the Beskar steel can deflect lightsabers.
Yeah.
So Mando, he's like, well, that's our deal. I've got to, go and find the child. And Boba's like, well, we didn't actually hold up our end of the bargain because we actually said, if you give me back my armor, I will help bring the child back to you safely, which we didn't do. So we're in your debt now. We're going to help you out. So we're getting a Din Djarin Boba Fett team up.
I freaking called it.
We called it, I think, a few episodes back.
I was like, what's the bet?
Episode 1 review, I think we might have called it.
Episode 1, I think we're like, wouldn't it be cool if they teamed up?
Yeah, and we got a little bit of that this episode, and it was fantastic. And it looks like that we've got a bit of a crew going on now. We've got Boba, we've got Fennec, and we've got Din Djarin. Oh boy.
Which is awesome.
Oh, it's awesome. I cannot wait. I cannot wait to see what happens. But before the episode wraps up, we go back to Navarro and we get to see Cara Dune again.
Yeah.
And she's actually under the employ of the New Republic now. She's a marshal for the New Republic. So she's got like a little badge that I think one of those X-Wing pilots was showing her. And I think he was trying to recruit her back then. She's obviously agreed to that now. And they have a bit of conversation and Din Djarin's like, hey, I need you to find out where Mayfield's being held. Which is Bill Burr's character from that Prison Break episode in season 1. Yeah. So he looks like he's trying to build together a bit of a suicide squad, a bit of an Avengers squad to kind of go after the child. And obviously, Mayfield, being an ex-Imperial sharpshooter, can probably, help track this Imperial cruiser. So she's like, well, I'm with the New Republic now. I got rules to follow. And then he's like, they've got the child. And you can just see in her face like, oh man, you know she's going to help them out. She's going to help them out. And then, that's kind of the episode. I think we go back to the cruiser for a little bit. We get to see Moff Gideon again. He kind of goes into this prison chamber, very familiar looking prison chamber, from, again, like A New Hope with Leia and all that. But he goes in and the child, Grogu, is just manhandling these stormtroopers. He's just kind of throwing them left and right and against these walls, and he's just kind of toying with them at this point.
With his little BB hands. He's like,
and the other stormtroopers are like, should we intervene? And Gideon's like, nah, just let him be. Because he knows he's going to tire him out. It's going to tire him out. Which it does. Like, once he's finished with the stormtroopers, he's like, he's got to go for a little nap again.
So sleepy.
And I feel like Gideon is now finally coming into his own as a villain in this show. Like, you can just... there's this great moment where he's just toying with the child, he's showing the Darksaber.
It's so horrible.
He's just kind of... and look, Giancarlo Esposito, like, he's fantastic.
Great
as
actor.
Gideon. He nails it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we get to see a little bit more of him and about, his character. And we just get to see, like, those bad guy traits starting to come through. And it's absolutely fantastic. He's doing a great job with Gideon. But then they stun him and they cuff him. And the last shot we get to see of Grogu before the end of the episode is him in his little cuffs. And, it's heartbreaking.
Oh, they need to save him so fast. Yes. Get him out of there.
So from here, I feel like, we're getting like that Avengers Suicide Squad team together. They're going after the child. They're going after Grogu. So Din Djarin is just hiring anyone he can. Mayfield. We might get Cara Dune involved, as well as Grief Karga possibly.
I hope so. Surely they would.
Yeah. Which I feel like, these last couple of episodes, we're just going to get like this showdown between them and Gideon, the Dark Troopers, the Darksaber. It's going to be
shit's going to hit the fan.
Shit's going to hit the fan. Keep in mind too, Grogu sent out that little Force beacon.
Yes.
So
exactly.
we could have a Jedi coming into the mix very soon. Now, there's talk about who this could be. Now, the obvious choice would be Luke, because he's the most powerful Jedi in the universe at this point. You would think, out of all the Jedi, he would feel that presence. Now, whether we want to bring Luke into The Mandalorian, I don't know. I mean, his age isn't really going to match, or the age of Mark Hamill isn't really going to match. There's talks that Sebastian Stan could become a young Luke Skywalker.
He could do a very good Skywalker,
But
I think.
that brings into question again, do we want to keep this separate from the main movie storyline? Which, yeah, I kind of agree with to an extent. So I don't know what they're going to do there. Maybe Luke sends someone to gather the child. Maybe Ezra from Rebels is in the mix. We don't know. We don't know who else is out there. There's even talks that Mace Windu survived Revenge of the Sith. I would actually really love to see
that would be awesome.
Samuel L. Jackson back in Star Wars.
Because if Boba can survive a fall and then falling into the mouth of a creature, surely Mace Windu.
I just want to hear him go, I am sick of these motherfucking Imperials in this motherfucking galaxy.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think these last 2 episodes are going to be absolute fire. I think they're going to be fantastic. And speaking of fire, like what a 1-2 punch from The Mandalorian. Like we had the Jedi last week and then the tragedy this week. 2 fantastic episodes. I mean, besides like the slight issues we might have had with the color grade, everything else was fantastic. It was still, from a content perspective, one of our favorite episodes.
Yeah, it still hit all the beats everywhere else. I think it was just that color grade or location that I think.
So can they back that up? Can they back that up in the next 2 episodes? I can't wait to find out. I think it's going to be a great end to the season. But what do you guys think? What do you think is going to happen next? What Jedi do you think we're going to see? Are we getting an Avengers Suicide Squad team up?
It seems that way.
It seems that way. Yeah. Anything else to say on this episode?
No, I really want to wrap this up because it is the middle of summer here. It is so hot right now.
Like we're downstairs in like this closed off room with like the lights on. It's very stuffy. It's very hot.
Warm, so.
It's summer here in Australia. So yeah, we're gonna wrap this up. You can probably see the sweat beads dripping from our faces.
So let's wrap it up there. Yeah. Leave us your comments on this week's episode. What do you think is going to happen next? We will catch you in the next one.
Yeah, do all that YouTube stuff, guys. Slam that like button if you like this video. Hit the bell for the notifications to get notified when our next Mandalorian review drops. Subscribe to our channel to check out some of our other stuff, including our Season 1 review. And most importantly of all, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye.
See ya.